This street in Tucson, Arizona was a solar oven, bare dirt, cracked asphalt so hot it hit 127 degrees in the afternoon sun. Nothing grew here, nothing wanted to. 30 years later, the same street is buried in shade. Native trees lean all the way across the road. Birds nest where there used to be only heat, and all of it started with a crime. One man, one rented handsaw, one Sunday morning when the city was not watching. His reason for breaking the law starts with what the city was doing with its water. Tucson gets less than 12 inches of rain a year. It is one of the driest cities in America, so it pays to move its water 336 miles through an open canal pulled from a shrinking Colorado River. That canal cost around $4 billion to build and tens of millions a year just to run. It is the single largest consumer of electricity in the whole state. Meanwhile, the rain the city does get was built to be thrown away. Every street was graded to send rainfall straight into a storm drain. 1 mile of neighborhood street sheds over 1 million gallons of rainwater a year. More rain falls on Tucson in a year than the entire city draws from its taps. And for decades, nearly all of it ran down the gutter and disappeared. A desert dying of thirst, standing on top of the answer. His name is Brad Lancaster. In 1998, he stood on the curb outside his house in the Dunbar Spring neighborhood, took a handsaw to the concrete, and cut 6 openings into it. It was illegal. A resident was not allowed to touch a city curb. So he did it on a Sunday morning, quietly, unsure what would happen if anyone caught him. He admits he was scared the whole time. What got him past the fear was simple math. The city was draining its aquifer by pumping harder every year, while paving over the exact ground that used to refill it. The idea itself was almost insultingly simple. When it rained, the street was already a river. The water just had nowhere to go but the drain. So Brad started reading the street like a watershed. Water runs downhill, so he found the high line and the low points, and he cut the curb where the runoff already wanted to collect. He dug a basin below the level of the road and let the street empty into it. When that basin fills, the overflow runs a little further and drops into the next one. Then the next. A chain of small catches, each one planting a bit more of the storm into the ground. He called it planting the rain. Before you put a single tree in the soil, you plant the water. Then the tree has something to drink. It worked faster than anyone expected. His trees shot up. His bare lot turned to shade. And here's the strange part. The city did not notice for years. His neighbors did. They kept asking him the same question. Why are your plants growing so much faster than ours when nobody ever sees you watering them? So he showed them. He walked them to the curb and pointed at the cut. The water was free. It had always been free. It ran past every house on the block each time it rained, and the entire city had been trained to flush it away. That left Brad with a choice. To spread this beyond his own yard, he could not keep working in secret. He would have to walk into City Hall and admit, on the record, that he had broken the law. So he did. He turned himself in, and then spent 3 years arguing with the transportation department to make curb cutting legal. He won. And then, it went much further than he planned. In 2008, Tucson passed an ordinance that did not just permit rainwater harvesting, it required it. New commercial buildings now have to supply at least half of their outdoor water from rain. It was believed to be the first law of its kind in the United States. The city began paying homeowners up to $2,000 to build the same basins Brad once cut in the dark. And in 2021, it launched an entire program. Storm to Shade, to build this green infrastructure across public lands citywide. The outlaw's trick became the building code. By then, Brad was not a lone vandal anymore. He was the teacher. A generation of desert gardeners across the Southwest learned to plant the rain from his classes and his books. People who sat in a room with him 20 and 30 years ago are still cutting curbs and digging basins today in their own neighborhoods, in their own cities. Stand on that street now and the numbers carry the story. Point an infrared thermometer at the open asphalt and it reads 127 degrees. Step 10 feet into the shade of one of Brad's basins and the ground reads 97. A 30-degree drop in surface temperature, same street, same afternoon. That gap is the whole game. Asphalt and concrete soak up the sun all day and hold it, turning a paved city into an island of heat that never fully cools at night. Shade and soil undo it. And the shade is not just shade. The Sonoran Desert has more than 400 native food plants, and Brad packed in as many as the street could hold. Velvet mesquite, whose pods grind into flour. Wolfberry, the native cousin of the goji. Barrel cactus fruit. Palo verde seeds you can eat like peanuts. What used to be a bare traffic island is now a working ecosystem sitting in the middle of an intersection. More than 24 native bird species have moved back into the neighborhood. On an eighth of an acre, Brad harvests around 100,000 gallons of rain a year, and it never stayed on his block. His neighbors copied him one curb cut at a time until most of the street was doing it. The desert was never actually dead. It was thirsty. The moment the water was allowed to stay, the life came back on its own. None of this makes the heat a solved problem, and it would be dishonest to pretend it does. The law is not always enforced. Plenty of new buildings still let their rain escape. The summers keep getting worse. In Arizona's largest county, the summer of 2023 killed a record 645 people through heat. Nearly 2/3 of them were over 50. 3 out of 4 were men. That is the danger these desert cities are actually facing. And it is the reason a single shaded street matters more than it looks. Tucson did not build a machine or wait to be rescued. One person looked at something everyone had accepted, that catching the rain is illegal, and quietly decided not to accept it. Now the city that once outlawed his idea catches the rain on purpose everywhere it can. The rain was always going to fall. The only question was whether anyone would let it land. If that is the kind of story you came for, this is the kind of comeback we cover here. Stick around.